Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour. Again, episode. I've stopped counting at this point. I'm here with JR Carrel today, booktuber, um,
Happy to be here.
author, and has anyone ever told you that you kind of look like the guy who plays Ferris Bueller's best friend in Ferris Bueller's Day Off before?
You know what? I've never had anyone say that. Like when you say it, I started thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I kind of do look like him. I get some obscure stuff like people be like, "Oh, you know the guy that was in the training video in Waiting? You look exactly like that guy." And I'm like, I had to go back and watch the movie because I was like, I don't remember the guy in the training video. I'm like, yeah, I guess tall, skinny, got the curly hair or whatever. I guess.
He's also in
But
Secession. I don't know, or Succession. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but he's
no, I hear that's excellent though.
yeah. I watched an episode and I was like, maybe I'll go back to it. But that was kind of
Mm,
you know. But yeah, you write things. You're on YouTube.
I
How you
I do
doing
a little
today?
bit, a little bit of everything. I was I was an author before I was a booktuber. Just a little bit. But yeah, I made some friends on BookTube, and it just felt like it was gonna happen sooner or later that I was gonna end up on here. I just needed to kind of figure out the technical aspects of how to do it because, I mean, I'm only 35, but I feel like a boomer. Technology. My friend, he is like does the highest level of tech you can imagine, works for the government and all that good stuff, but he calls me the angel of death when it comes to electronics. So when we were growing up, he got all the trial and error from fixing my computers because I definitely couldn't do it.
Yeah, but you run a BookTube channel. You got some subscribers on there. Talk about books. It's all good.
Uh, yeah, when I
You've even
first,
written some books. That's pretty cool.
yep, I've written two books. Well,
Are they
I published two.
self-published?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
self-published. Yeah, self-published two books. My first book was More Than a Vampire. The second one was More Than a Gunslinger, and then just got my cover back from the artist for my third book. Uh, you know, doing I might be breaking news or whatever, but I think I'm going to shoot for the first week of October for the release of the third book, which is the direct sequel to More Than a Vampire. So,
Hmm. I see you got a
and
thing back there. You got background.
yeah, my wife got me that canvas of the cover. We even got some T-shirts and some other stuff. I've had some people ask me about it, and it's like logistics. I mean, I send out books to people and stuff like that, but maybe once I start getting a little bit bigger, we'll throw a store up and do all that cool stuff like Will White, hopefully one day.
Yeah. So, how would you describe your books that you've written? Are they part of a series, or are they two separate books? Like what is it?
Yeah, so all my books fall under the umbrella of like the More Than Human world.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Okay.
the title below them all is a More Than Human novel. Um, and the second book, which is More Than Gunslinger, is a standalone, and and the way I'm kind of building out my world is, um, you know, each book will have a different area or a different character, and it kind of opens up the world a little bit here, a little bit there. Not It's not a multiverse or anything like that. We kind of jump time frames. More Than a Vampire mostly takes place from 1639 to 1700, and then More Than a Gunslinger takes place in 1869.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it's different. More Than Gunslinger is a totally different main character.
So no
Although,
like recurring characters.
well, yeah. So since okay, have you read any of the Dresden Files?
I have not, but I know what they are. I see one of them's
Okay.
behind you. So.
Yeah, that's that. Jim Butcher was my big influence, and Andrei Sapkowski. The Witcher. Those are like
Oh,
my two.
oh
Those
my
are my
god.
two like formative things. But yeah, with my world, it's kind of similar to how Jim Butcher set up the Dresden Files, where like um, folklore and mythology are most like for him they're mostly true, but his is more localized. He mainly uses like Celtic and British folklore, and then some American folklore. Um,
Mhm.
and it's like humans don't know about all the stuff that's kind of going on.
Mhm.
Um, and mine is similar to that, except for me, pretty much every mythology is true.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah. So in his, they have a lot of what's called like masks that they wear. So a lot of entities are multiple entities in
Oh
his
my
world.
god.
They kind of, but in my world, it's pretty much all true, except for like the Greek gods are the Roman gods because they basically are in
They're the
in real
same.
mythology. They
They're the
just kind of
same. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, all that stuff is true, and I don't smash everything in one book, but you'll like I said, it's going to be kind of opening different pockets throughout my books, and I try to put in some obscure creatures and gods that people rarely have heard of.
Mhm.
Um, my beta readers all the time will be like, "Is that real mythology? Is that a real god?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go look it up." Like, but I've just loved growing up. I just loved mythology and history, and so throughout my books,
So wait, is it our planet just like an alternate version of it, or
yes,
is it like a
yeah,
different world?
it's our planet. Just everything that you've ever heard of is real. It's just kind of they stay below, under the radar mostly. Um, so yeah, vampires are real. I mean, the first book we follow
So what is the
Simon.
next one gonna be like a gangster one with like elves shooting each other?
Well, you'll see, like if you read it or listen to the audiobooks, because they both have audiobooks. Different creatures have their own nations, right? And they control different areas of the globe.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and so you'll see like werewolves and wolf mythology is really big in Germany. Well, that's kind of the headquarters of the lycanthropes and the werewolves
Oh,
and stuff.
oh
That's
no, you're gonna have Nazi werewolves at some point.
well, they do control a lot of the beer, and stuff. Yeah, you have weird stuff like that. Just random little tidbits where I at least I hope while you're reading it, and then somebody says something, you go, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. If any supernatural entities would own something like that, it would be those guys or those guys. Um, yeah. So that's kind of how I'm spreading this out. But yeah, it's all the same world, different timelines, and since you do have characters like Fae that are long lived, and vampires that are immortal, you will have some crossovers in the future. They're like in my second book, which takes place, some like 200 years, 200 and some years later. There are some passing cameo characters from the first book.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to like saturate it. But it's like, hey, if they're immortal, why wouldn't they be in that area if they were? You kind of you the way I'm trying to set this up is there are going to be some books, some standalones, or some other duologies and trilogies later on that you won't necessarily have to be forced to read to
You're basically
understand
doing your own
everything.
disc world, just a bunch of different stories in this world you're doing.
Yeah, kind of like that. And like when I first started it, people were like, "Well, who do you want to compare yourself to?" And as far as like in the novel realm, I really couldn't think of anybody, but I want to be like the Stan Lee of novels. Like I want people, uh, you know, nothing against these big epic books and these really books that make you have to like, all right, we're like Malazan, where you're like, all right, let's zone in on this. We got to be all in. Like I want people to like, I want it to be like an event. Like I want them to be excited. Like, oh man, this character's coming back, or this character's getting their own book. I want to be the character, author. I want them to be like, who's your instead of like, oh, which is your favorite book in this series? Which would be fine. But I also want people to like, who's your favorite character, man? Like, let me like, who's your guy in this series?
What's
That's
your
kind of
favorite
how I want
character
it.
that you've written so far? You kind of walked yourself into
Um,
that one.
Yeah, I would say Simon, my main character from my first book and then the book I've just finished is probably my favorite, but I'm actually currently working on I'm almost done with my fourth book, but it's it's an anthology of like characters that people have liked in the first two books, and then who my beta readers really liked in the third book. I
Mm,
kind of given them their own 3-chapter short story for
mm.
the fourth book. So like those are some of my favorite characters, or the characters I think will be interesting and maybe have more roles going forward. But like I like Rattenfinger, who
Rat face.
um, yeah, his name is Rattenfinger, and he is. I mean, it won't ruin anything, but he's basically the Pied Piper.
Oh, I was like, is he like
Because
a zombie?
no, yeah,
Sounds like a
his,
zombie
his
name.
name. Yeah, if you go and you look up the Pied Piper in German, his name is Rattenfinger, because he
Oh,
got rid of the rats in Hamlin, right?
yeah.
So that's what they call him, and he's kind of an amalgamation of Jack Sparrow meets Dandelion of The Witcher, kind of that flamboyant kind of guy. Um, really suave, but also annoying at times. But yeah, I really like using him in the books because my books are dark fantasy, so it's like how would the world be if these were real characters? If vampires really did exist, or these kind of people really did exist. So it can be dark at times. I wouldn't characterize it as grim dark, but he kind of pops in and can kind of throw some jokes down or make things funny
Yeah, I
to
was
kind of.
curious what you would call your books because I see some of your covers and I'm like, looks a little grim darky. Like like
Yeah,
for like,
yeah. It's I
huh.
like to say that I don't censor anything in my books. Not that the books are, I don't there's not a lot of curse words in the books. Not but people do use them when you should use them, when
Yeah.
it feels like an impact, or stuff like that. And then like, when there's battles or fight scenes, nothing, I don't try to like, I don't cut away to black. I don't be like, oh, he stabbed him and there it was, kind of, Brandon Sanderson esque a little bit, where he doesn't really push too much of that out there.
Hmm.
I'm telling you how it would look, um, so I don't, there's not really, there's only a very few topics that I really try not to touch too much. But that's not to say that I won't in the future. So I try to like no censoring as much as possible. If it would if it would happen that way in real life, then that's the way it is in the books.
I see. I see. Um. So yeah, it's yeah. It seems like you've made a good thing of yourself. So you started a booktube channel. Because I remember people talking about your books before I even knew that you started like a booktube channel. So
Yeah, I what yeah, when I first got published, I you're a self-published guy, so you're doing it all yourself and you're trying to figure out, and this is a mistake that a lot of authors make. And I know you are in the process of writing your own book, right?
yes, I'm very excited. I have three chat. Well, it goes to 33. I completed 29 last night. Or well, actually no. I have like 3 chapters and an epilogue to go, pretty much is what I'm trying to say, or
Okay,
4.
all right. So yeah, you're not far off at all. Um, but like you're in a better, probably in a better spot than I was starting off because you do have a channel, and it looks like your channel does pretty well. I mean,
Yeah, it's okay. It does okay.
yeah, I mean your view numbers are pretty close to mine, and depending on what I'm doing.
I was about to say, yeah,
Well,
I was about to say, I was about to say, yeah,
I mean, and that's the one thing I've learned. It's like you want to try to grab those like hardcore people. I mean, you get several hundred views. It looks like on a lot of your videos there.
it
But
depends.
yeah, but like you're in a good spot. You already have at least a little bit of name out there. Some people know you. You have connections. You've interviewed some people. Um, and
Yeah,
that's kind of what I wish I would have done before I published. Because once I published, then I'm like scrambling, trying to think of like, all right, how can I market this thing?
well,
I
it's funny because it's like because I decided because I had done some like you could call it booktube, but it was kind of just me talking about books and well, it was booktube, but then I'm like I hate how I sound on camera. I hate this, so I stopped doing it, and so
you know
I just kind of did stuff. I put up podcasts that I did, and some people were like, well, why don't you just do like booktube? You got all these opinions and whatnot, and I'm like, I don't feel like I present myself very well, and then I
oh
thought, and then I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, is there really a good reason why you shouldn't do it? And then I thought about it, and I was like, no, all right, I'll just do it. And then I saw guys like Brian Lee Durfee just like with his little phone doing it, and he's just rambling on. I'm like, you know what? If he can do that, I think I can too.
I love me some Brian Lee Durfee. But like the last couple lives I've done with like some fellow authors and stuff, I like to start off. I'm pulling my Brian Lee Durfee. I'm Joe Carrel, the author of. I love Brian. He's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I made so many mistakes starting off my channel, and like as you go, you just learn. I mean, couldn't talk, didn't, it was just a bunch of stuff, and you just learn along the way. I mean, and that's pretty much everything. I mean, like with my books, like every time I publish a book, I learn something new. I learn some better way to do things. But I did get lucky. I reached out to Philip Chase, and I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
had him
I'm
on
like,
about a month ago. That was pretty
yeah,
cool.
seen that, yeah. I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, I got this book. I mean, we're getting close. It's kind of Halloween, spooky season. I know a bunch of booktubers are doing that kind of stuff. I was like, hey, would you be interested in taking a look at my book?" And he was like, "Yeah, so yeah, send it my way." So I like as
I
soon as
think that's
I
where I first heard you from was Philip Chase because he was like a judge on or maybe it wasn't like your book was on that, but like I remember he was like covering indie books for some reason.
yeah, he tries, or at least for a while. He's busy now because he's got his own book and stuff. So it's like, and school and all that. But yeah, there for a while he was doing at least like one indie book a month, and was trying to. And then he actually asked if he could interview me, and I was like, heck yeah. So but yeah, so he did that, and then Steve from Steve Talks Books. Same thing. Me and him had talked a lot in the comment section of his videos there for a while. I think I was watching him from the time he had like 200 or 300 subscribers, um, and we kind of just become friends. And he was like, "Yeah, I'll take a look at your book too," and then so that just all kind of built out, and got the book into several other people's hands and whatnot, and then they were like, "Hey, won't you jump on a video with us?" I think the first like video outside of an interview I did was the Dark Tower. I think I was on Steve's channel for one of the Dark Tower discussions before he decided the Dark Tower wasn't for him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm done with the Dark Tower." So
Yeah,
he's like,
that one's not for
he's like,
everyone. It definitely is. I don't know how to describe the Dark Tower actually.
Yeah, the Dark Tower is it's different. It's a little bit of everything, you know.
It's a
Every kind of
Western
fantasy you can
fantasy
portal, yeah,
horror. There's some sci-fi elements in there.
meta, it's a little bit
Yeah.
of that.
They meet Stephen King at one point. I'm like, dude, what is
Yeah. I love Stephen King. He's like, you know what this story needs? This story needs me. That's what this story needs. It's like, you know what? You're Stephen King. I can't tell you. You're the man. So
Hey,
you do
joke's
whatever
on
you
us.
want to do.
You're cashing in your money at the bank. I'm just sitting here.
I'm just a guy. So you go ahead. You do you.
And now when I think of that, or I don't know if you ever seen Steve. I don't know if you ever seen Daniel Green, but there was one time he was on. He's talking about the Dark Tower, and he's all like, I think when he got meta, I think that was after he got off drugs. But you know,
Yeah.
Daniel was all like, he was all like, well, one day Stephen King got all coked up and was like, let's put me in there.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude.
I love me some me. Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, well, and with the booktube thing, it's like I started watching because I decided like I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna start getting back into writing because I wrote a ton when I was in high school,
Hmm.
and then I just stopped. You know, you get into the workforce and stuff, and you're just like, all right, you're just out here trying to make money, you know, and you're not, and you kind of, things just kind of get pushed to the back burner. And one day I was just like, not so much that I was depressed, but then I was like, man, I need to do something for me. I need something for myself, you know, because you got your family, you got your work, and then everybody has to have something for themselves. So I was like, I'm gonna start writing again. And I just had this story that wanted to come out. And then I was like, you know what? Well, I'm gonna be serious about this. So I started watching like all of like AuthorTube. I don't know if you know who like Jenna Morassi is and
Yeah,
Megalator.
I've watched her, which is,
Yeah,
it's kind of,
she's like the gateway drug. Like if you type in anything related to AuthorTube, like she's the first one that comes up.
yeah,
So
no. But what's funny is like she always giving like these really good writing advice, and then I've seen people on YouTube being like, what? I
yeah,
mean, it's
well,
their opinions, but I just think that's funny, I'm like,
yeah, I actually I reviewed her book a few months ago, and I was just like, because I was like, like let's give it a shot. I've heard like Daniel Green crapped on it, and some other people have crapped on her book. And when I read it, I was just like, it's long, uh, you know, and it's pretty predictable, but her writing skill, not not bad. I just think a lot of people judge her based on her giving advice.
yeah.
It's like,
When you give,
they, it's
that's
like
why
if
I'm
she's
not.
giving
Yeah,
advice, she should be the best, right? Yeah, I
that's
think
why
that's what
I'm
people
not
think.
giving writing advice on YouTube because people are gonna. That's a good
Yeah,
way to
me
get
neither.
people to just shit all over your book. I'm like,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah.
no.
The only advice I get, like I don't really do like, oh, this is how you should do it. This is the and a lot of things that Jenna would do is like the tropes. Like if you're an author, don't use this trope. Don't do this. This is overplayed. This is toxic or blah blah blah. You know, which I don't believe in that. I don't believe in toxic anything. Like
Uh-huh.
everything is fair game, just how you do it. Um, but yeah, like so I think a lot of people judge her because she's like, all right, you have all the opinions, you have all the tell everybody how to do stuff. So I think she gets overly judged. I've read, the last 2 years I've read over a hundred books, I think, so far. And it's not like she's the worst of the people I've read. It's just, when you put yourself out there as the expert, you're gonna get judged harder. I just tell people this is how I do it. It may not work for you. I'm not saying I'm the best. I like one advice I give to a lot of people who are just starting to write is like if you're having a hard time like writing on a regular basis, try using your phone. Like if you have an
Oh
Android, use
God.
Google.
I don't think I can
Use
do that.
Google. Like use Google Docs because
Yeah.
like me, I have no time when because I work full time. I drive an hour to work. I got kids. I coach. I do all these things. I don't have time to sit down at home and write for an hour or hardly any length of time. So like I just bust out my phone while I'm at work in between doing something. I'm like, you know. Um, so that's how I write all my stuff, and it's like, if you're having a hard time finding time, that can really help you out to just do it in between, sitting on the toilet, whatever, Yeah, you got to go a couple times a day, hit it, there's no excuse not to get some words in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a friend named Jason, and I read his book. It's called A Song for the End of the World. And I remember just
Good
being
title.
really, and like it was because like he's all like he's a bit more critical than I am when it comes to books. So I pick up his book. I'm like, oh, this should be fun because he's always talking about he likes more like straightforward stories. And then I read this, I'm like, what the hell is even going on? And we had a conversation all about it. It was just
About his book.
yeah.
About
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, what were you doing? What were you doing? Why'd you do that? And
Uh, well, and
I hate the
like,
audio in that on my side because it kept like cutting out for some reason. But whatever.
man, like with me and my reviews, like I'm not like a deep diver type of person. I'm not like, I don't know. I assume you know who AP is.
Yes.
Critical Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not AP. I'm not gonna like dive into every undertone of what this person was thinking and stuff.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
know if I
pretty.
could do that either. I mean, I like to think about books, but I'm not like, look at this word flow. It flows so nicely. No, I don't do that.
Look at the scheme that he was using with, uh, but
Nothing against
you
that,
know,
I should know, but
you know,
it's just
but
like
like,
I don't do that.
yeah, the way I kind of do it is like, okay, if you watch my channel long enough, I kind of give you my reaction, how I felt about the book. Did I feel like the book was exciting? Did I feel like the author was going somewhere? If it's a series, like, do I see the series getting better from what they did? Do I feel like the world's gonna open? That's I just kind of tell people how I felt about the book. Like we'll do deeper dives. Like I'll do like I did a whole year basically of Dresden discussions with different people.
Oh my god,
Um,
there's so many
you
in that
know,
series. I haven't read
yeah,
them, but
yeah.
oh man,
So it took us 11 and a half months like of
oh
doing
my
lives.
god.
We didn't do every book one at a time. I think we started off doing like we did the first three books and then the second three books and then we started doing two books at a time and that's kind of
Mm.
how we finished it off doing two books at a time and now I started The Witcher, but we are doing one Witcher book at a time because there's only 7 books. So
Yeah, I read the
um,
first story collection of that.
the last wish.
Yep, it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, and it most people who read it like they like the short story collections even like better than the actual books themselves.
Mm.
Um, but I think that's because people love Geralt, and once you get into the books, Ciri becomes a bigger part, and and he'll split off and do POVs for her sometimes and
That's
which I mean I thought it was great, but a lot of people, especially in the last book, a lot of people like there's too much Siri, but I mean I don't it's like I don't want to tell you. I mean I liked it, but
yeah, no, I've only read one of the short. I have both of them over there. I don't want to pull them out, but
well I mean and that's the thing that I've learned about BookTube. It's like when I started because I wasn't a huge reader growing up. That like I was a couple books a year type of person. I was a
why don't you start
cinephile.
being a
Like,
writer?
yeah, I was a movie guy. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't I didn't go to parties. didn't my family, we grew up pretty poor, so I didn't go on vacations. It was just like my vacation was the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the kid that was at the movie theater every weekend. I was watching TV, watching all the movies there. Um, there's a site that's still around, but they've changed it pretty much. Um, it was called boxofficemojo.com, right? And it would track all the box office, but then on the side, it had a thing where you could like go and rate movies, and they had a really smooth system where it would be like it would just pull up a random 25 movies, and you could give it a letter grade, and
Mm-hmm.
then it would just cycle. And like I was like 18 or 19, and I had over 3,000 movies rated on that, you know. And and then like I think IMDb bought them and then just killed all the fun stuff off of the
Oh.
off of the site. So now that site is pretty much 100% just about the box office. So there's no like, and no, I haven't found any other site that was as smooth as, like, I think IMDb has a section where you can do that, but you can really
Have you ever
only
tried Letterbox?
no,
Have you ever heard of
I've
it?
heard of it, but I don't think I've actually done anything on the site.
Well, I mean, yeah. If you do like movie reviews and stuff, you can just list stuff on there and put like star ratings, and it's much smoother than IMDb. I grew to fucking
Yeah,
hate
IMDb,
IMDb.
you can track your stuff on IMDb, but it's so slow. It's like one at a time, one at a time. Like
Yeah,
box office,
IMDb.
yeah.
Yeah, IMDb fucking sucks. I hate it.
I think
I don't
Amazon
know if
owns
you.
it now.
I don't know if
Is
you.
that right?
I don't know how much you like. Are fine with cursing, but I fucking hate
No, no, you're good, man.
IMDb.
You're good.
I
I
hate it.
see. Well, and that's another thing. Like starting BookTube, there were so many like, and my channel is evolving over time because, you start off, you're like, oh, okay, can't cuss, 100%, like no cussing, like it gotta be dialed in, and then it's like, well, I want to do some opinion pieces, but like, you don't want to piss people off. So it's just like, maybe I shouldn't do that. And so, but that's becoming a bigger part of like opinion pieces are becoming a bigger part of my channel, and it's, you know, but my main thing is always going to be my book reviews. Like, I probably review 90% of all the books I read.
Mm,
But I'm trying to branch off into opinion pieces and just be like, well, if you don't like my opinion, well, then I guess we'll just have to deal with it.
go to Murphy Napier's channel or something.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
Murphy. Yeah, what's the big? I always say the big three. You have Daniel Green, Murphy, and then Elliot Brooks. Like when you first start on AuthorTube, it's Jenna Morassi and it was Megalator's I Writerly. Those were the two. But
Yeah.
then and on BookTube, it's Daniel Green, Murphy, and Elliot were like the gateway drugs to BookTube, and then you kind of whittle your way down to the other people you like.
Yeah. Then like Mike. Mike's
Yep.
book
And then
reviews.
Mike's getting close. I mean, he might surpass Elliot here soon for like, there's other ones that are really big too, but and I don't want to rag on anybody, but some of them are more like I don't know how to explain it. Like there are booktubers that I've never heard of that have like close to 1 million subscribers, but I don't know, they review stuff that I just wouldn't even think of it. Like I guess I'm thinking like we're more of like the fantasy community.
Hmm.
Whereas they'll do all kinds of other stuff that not a lot of people in these circles read, I guess.
Yeah. No. I just review whatever book I want. I mean, I like fantasy just fine. I love fantasy as a genre, but yeah.
Yeah, I know
I
you
try
got
to
a lot
cover
of.
I try to cover as many books and many genres as possible. Because if I just like covered like fantasy or horror, even though I like those genres a lot, like I would get bored.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would get bored.
I've watched some of your stuff, and like I know you're a big McCarthy fan,
Yeah,
and
I put up a video of one of his books today. Well, as of the recording of this, it's gonna go up in a few weeks. But uh, yeah, no, I put that up. I've
I know you
covered.
talked about like the Great Gatsby, and yeah, I was like I said, I didn't get really into reading until I was probably in my mid 20s. So like going through school, I didn't read the classics. Like I remember, I think I
I
was
was a
on.
weird kid growing up, so I don't blame you. You know, it's fine.
No,
You didn't.
like yeah, I felt like I was the weird kid. Like I was the kid that would like I all the teachers would be like, Joe, you're so smart. If you just apply yourself,
Oh
and I
yeah.
was the kid that I was the kid that was smart enough to figure out. I worked hard at not working hard. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Joe, you're gonna do this book review. Choose from these 5 books. And I was like, which one of these books has a movie? I'm gonna watch the movie, then I'm gonna go do research to see what they didn't add in, and then I'm gonna come back and get an A on my report card, you know. And I'm just like, yeah, I probably did the same amount of work had I just read the book, you know. Like, but
Yeah, no, I
you
mean,
know,
I was the same way though. With like math, ugh, hated
nope.
math.
I barely skated through math my
I don't know
whole high
how they
school
passed
career.
me after some of the stuff I did in math. This is
I
I'd
can
always
still
lose
remember my
papers because I'm messy. I don't know. God, I feel so
like
bad for my teachers
I re-
and my
I
parents
remember
because they were
going.
always like,
Oh man, going into my senior year, I was like, oh, they're like, you should probably try to have another math, even though you don't really need it. You should have another math. You know, it'll look good if going to college or whatever. And I was like, all right, well, what's the easiest math?
"Oh
And they're like,
God."
well, geometry. And I was like, cool. I get in there and they're like, yeah, this is a ninth grader class. I'm like, oh, it should be easy. And they're like, an honors ninth grade class. And I barely, I got like a C or a C plus on that.
Oh
Like
man.
half the time I could get it, and then the other half I felt like she was talking French, and I was
Yeah,
just
I know.
like,
I'm the same. Like, even like here's my like even when they told me how to do it, and I'm like, okay, I think I got the idea. I would still do it wrong.
yep,
I'm like,
yep.
how?
I,
This
it
I
was,
don't know if like math does not have like a brain, but it hates me.
yeah.
It doesn't
It's so
want.
funny. Like I got lucky, like that the teacher who was the geometry teacher, it was her first year, so she was like, so she was like super young, and I was like the oldest kid, oldest
Oh
kid in the
no,
school because I failed like fourth grade, like it was just a whole thing. So I was like 19, she was like 23, so I was like, trying to be cutesy with her and stuff. I was like, hey, don't call on me today. I don't know, like be nice. Like I was like, I don't know any. Like if you call me up, I'm just gonna recopy what the last person did, whether it's wrong or not. Like. But and my wife, she'll get on me. She'll be like, yeah. She's like, you're so terrible. Like, or you say you're so terrible at these math, but like when it comes to like percentages and stuff like that, I can do it. Like my brain just like I think it was growing up, like because I loved like baseball and football cards and stuff,
uh-huh.
and I'd always like, oh, this is his batting average. This is this and this, and so percentages stick in my head pretty quick. But when it comes to like trig and all that stuff, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. Like, do not ask.
Yeah, no, it's just, oh man. I'm glad I wasn't. I'm glad I didn't dream of being an astronaut. Because you have to
Yeah,
be good at
fighter
math to do
pilot and
that.
all that
Oh
good stuff.
god.
Yeah, there was a time where I thought, man, I might become a history teacher, like, because I love history and like that's one of the few classes where I would pay attention while other kids would fall asleep. I was like, just like stare, like me and the teacher would just have full blown conversations, like, because I'm like the only one interested in what's going on in the Ottoman Empire in 1902, and it's like I just find history fascinating, and that's another thing with my books is like, I'll sneak like little references to like the reason that this vampire cabal is not doing their meeting in this city is because this king was just hanged and there was too much heat. So it's like well, so I put that kind of stuff
So
in all
again,
the time.
are Nazi werewolves in the works at any point?
That's possible. I haven't done any urban fantasy yet, like modern urban fantasy. So it's like one book is 1639 to 1700, the other one's in 1869. the third book is the sequel to the first book, so it's just after 1700. And then in my short story anthology, I bounce all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I got thousands of years before that, and then another
So what,
like Western.
do you have like Koshi the Deathless and like in Russia or anything like that?
Well, how in the hell do you know who that is? Because
I'm
not
also
saying
kind
he's
of I'm also kind of a myth buff, kind of.
not
I like
not
history.
saying he's in one of my books, but that yeah. So yeah, I the second book is called More Than a God War,
Mm.
and it's a lot of Slavic stuff,
Oh,
a lot of
sure, I like
lot yeah, a lot of Slavic stuff. Yeah, Norse stuff, Egyptian, yeah, and
Yeah,
like the
I always liked
go ahead.
English and history when I was in school. So,
Yeah,
though
so
even in history, it's just like I would just be in there, and the teacher just didn't care, and they just like stand there and just like dribble on. I was just like, good lord.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, I've heard you say
I could
I've
go
heard you
on.
say you are you graduating from college or
No,
did
I'm
you
still in
just
college. I'm well, I transferred to one college because I got my associates, but that doesn't matter.
okay.
I didn't go to the graduation on that one.
So what are you planning? What's the goal?
Well, my thing is in professional media journalism,
Oh,
basically for those who
score.
don't know. Um, Maybe I'll do something with that. I don't know. Journalism's kind of a contested thing right now, but we'll see how that
I
works
think
out.
we need some good ones, so
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I started. Well, I started working on the thing I'm working on now because I was talking to a friend. Because I had always wanted to write something, but I'm just like, because I was one of those guys who always just like nitpick details and whatnot. And then one day I was talking to my friend, and he finally was just like, he kind of just gave me the kick in the pants. He's like, "Do it." So I was
yeah.
like, you know what? Fine. So I did it. I'm doing it right now. That'll work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way with my best friend. He's got some crazy cool ideas. And he'll send me like little snippets, and I'm like, all right, man, start it, man, start it going. And like, he's one of those like guys that's like so worried about missing anything up, so he just keeps building out like characters and the world and the lore.
I
You
did
know,
that for a while, and then I finally kind of got over
yeah.
that.
At some point, you gotta jump start it, and like, and I always tell him, I'm like, you can come back and fix it, like if you just get the first draft done, and then if you want to add to it, if
One of the
if
things I
you think
learned is
you're
like when you write a first draft, it can be kind of bad.
yeah,
Not that you shouldn't try at all, but like
yeah,
it's not gonna be like perfect the first time.
yeah,
So
it's never
don't
going to
worry
be
about
perfect the
that.
first time through. I mean, I tend
There
to
are
write.
beta readers for a reason.
Yes, that is the number one thing I will say to people. It's like, I've heard, and this is like being a self-pub author. It's like there's so much stuff that you have to do, and then there's so much advice out there. And one of the advice, and like, I think AP does this. I don't know if he does it permanently for a living, but he's a developmental editor. Which, if you can afford it, yeah, like if you got that
Oh man.
cash to, if you got that cash to burn,
If
go, go for it.
I'd probably write for a while, and then I'd probably go to someone like AP, be like, "Could you help a humble man from Oklahoma like me to
But
help me with my book?"
but it's like, if you got the money, sure, go for it. But like, you don't need that if you have good beta readers. Go find people, try to find people you don't know, that don't know you, that aren't just going to be like your, I mean, like my friend, he'll tell me if he thinks something's, up, but I have beta readers who don't know me on a personal basis. And so they'll tell me like, why would you do that? Like, or this does, or, you're putting too much of this in there, or we need more of that, so that's a must for a self-pub author is try to get as many beta readers as you can in there so you can get as many, and I always say, like, if you get 3 people saying the same thing, then there's something to it.
There's something you're doing right, yeah.
Yeah, like they're like, okay, if you get multiple people who are like, this isn't good, or why is this person doing this? They don't like it. Then it's like, unless, and this is sometimes it'll be like, well, there's a reason that is exactly happening, and you'll find out later. But if it's just like you didn't see that, you're like, oh yeah, maybe that is kind of messed up.
Yeah,
Time to go
there's
back
some
and
things
polish that up.
in the thing I'm doing right now. I'm kind of like laying seeds for like
Yep.
mysteries that will be answered in other things.
Yeah.
Which I'm curious
Well,
how people react to that. Or like, because I know there's some people out there who will complain. I'm like, you know what? I just learned you gotta let go of the fear, man.
Yeah.
I luckily had a good friend who finally just went like, you're gonna do it and you're gonna like it. And I'm like, you know what?
You're gonna do it. You're gonna like it. Yeah.
Or something like that.
Like,
he's just like,
that's what I
write the
learned
damn
from,
thing. And I'm like, okay.
yeah. That's what I learned from Jim Butcher is like he is the master of throwing arcs up and delivering on them like 3-4 plus books later. You're just like, oh my god, that person's like, oh, that's what that person was doing. Holy crap, and that's, I kind of am trying to do that. Like, people will ask, they'll be like, oh my god, who is this character that you like? They'll be in it just for a minute, but they'll do something interesting, and people will be like, who is that? I'm just like, you'll find out. You'll find out later, or like, why did they do this? Or what is that artifact? And it's like, everything I do, there's a reason behind it. I haven't had anybody ask me, what is this, or why did you do that I actually don't have a reason for later on, so.
I see. It's a good. That's yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. How you were talking about planting seeds.
Yeah.
I love that stuff, man. That's my jam.
No. I mean, because I know, because one of the things I've noticed about like fantasy series, like with like Game of Thrones or something like. I haven't read The Name of the Wind, but I know that's a trilogy that hasn't been finished. I started Scott Lynch's Gentlemen Bastards this year, and that's supposed to be 7 books. There's only 3 out right now. So I'm like, so I kind of learned from that. I'm like, have an arc in your mind and stick with it. Like, know how the story will begin and know how it's going to end. Now, with mine, it's kind of like, it's sort of like you could read them all standalone, but there is an arc to the story.
Yeah.
And I've heard Jim Butcher kind of does that with Dresden. I'm like, I've not read this, so I don't know. That's entirely coincidental.
You really should read every book. I mean, there is an arc through it. But a lot of people will say the first 2 are, especially the first 2, are Monster of the Week, basically.
I'll mind that.
Kind of Buffy-ish books. I mean, he was really influenced by Buffy. But
it's funny. I know that James Marsters is.
Yep. It's the best.
I actually met him at a local con a few years ago. That was pretty cool.
That would be great.
And like, I'm a big, now I didn't know him from Buffy. I knew him from Torchwood, the Doctor Who spin-off.
Torchwood. Okay.
I walked over to him like, dude, really liked you in Torchwood. He's like, oh man, that show was great, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you, Torchwood, Doctor Who?
Oh man, that's tough. I don't know.
I personally am a Torchwood guy.
I was about to say, I think Torchwood is actually a lot deeper than Doctor Who.
Yes, that was my whole thing.
It deals with some really heavy stuff. Also, I just love Captain Jack Harkness. He's my favorite companion of the Doctor. So he's great. And I wanted to meet John Barrowman at that same con so bad, but I was there on Sunday and he was gone. I was devastated.
Yeah, my wife got me I want to say it was 2. Yeah, it must have been 2 years ago. because it was right like as my book was being released, or just as I was doing it. But I think the thing is called Cameo or something. Like it's big now, but it wasn't really big when she first did it because I had never heard of it. But like apparently you can get a hold of like some celebrities and have them do personalized video messages. And she's like, hey, come here, sit down, sit down. And I was like, I just got home from work. I'm in my work clothes and everything. And she's like, watch this video. And it was like, oh, James Marsters is talking. Oh, cool, cool. And it's like he's talking in a character from the book who's Bob the Skull, and he's talking like him, and Bob's very like kind of French talking, and he's like, hello, Joseph, and I'm like, what? And like, yeah, and it's like, I heard that you are in the process of writing a book. He's like, I too write books. I'm like, I was losing my shit. I was like,
Awesome.
this is the best present of all time. Like, and she was like, because you message him or whatever, and like you can see previews of him talking with other people, but mine was the only Dresden. Like everybody was Buffy, like all
Yeah.
Spike. Like everybody wanted him to talk like Spike.
Yeah, no, he does do a very good British accent. I mean,
Yeah.
Tort.
I didn't know he
I
wasn't
didn't know
British.
I didn't know he was American either.
I didn't know he wasn't British until like, 7-8 years ago or whatever. I was just like, I always thought he was British. I was like, okay, that's so weird hearing you speak with your American accent.
Yeah,
It's
it's like did you ever watch Band of Brothers on HBO?
yeah, it's been like right when it first came out, so it's been a long time.
I was about to say the main character in that, the guy who plays him, I think it's Damien. Damn it, what is that dude's name? It's Damien, I know that for sure. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, it's so weird, like, because it's always the other way around. It's always the British people playing Americans. But like it was so crazy when I learned that. But yeah, I thought that was like the
Damian
coolest
Lewis,
thing.
yeah. I watched Band of Brothers. I'm like, God, that guy was so good, and I looked him up. He's British. And I'm like, his American accent is so good. I'm like,
it like it's not as long as James Marsters, but like for a little while, I thought Hugh Laurie was American.
Oh yeah, yeah.
From House.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. Like if you like you look into it, and like there's like interviews about him auditioning, right? And he knew like it's an American character, and he went in there and did his Dr. House thing. And one of the comments that somebody said is like the guy who was doing the casting really wanted him. He's like, that is the quintessential American actor. Like, it's like I was like that. I don't know how they do it, man. They can just transition right over to an American accent.
Yeah, I know there's some actors who can just do it. I don't know how, but they can. It's just I mean, John Barrowman's like he's Scottish and he sounds like an American, so I'm like, I don't know how he does that.
Wolva.
Yeah, no. Or yeah, no, I love, but yeah, no, it's funny. I walked over to James Marsters. I'm like, yo, dude, Torchwood, I like that, and he was so excited to talk about Torchwood. I'm like, oh man.
Like, I like that. That's my shit right there.
And I hadn't really ever. I still have not watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I'm just like, yo, dude, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was a good show,
Buffy,
man.
Yeah, Buffy was in my wheelhouse. That was like, yeah, late late 90s. Yeah, that was my jam.
I know. I feel bad. I still haven't seen it, but well, maybe someday.
Well, it was kind of like what I was saying earlier. It's like I really started picking up my reading once I, probably like a year before I got on the booktube was like I really started picking up my reading. But you can have two booktubers who have read 200 books and barely have any crossover. Like they barely have read anything that's the same. There's just so many books out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've still, it's weird to say. Like I'm at some point this year I'm gonna get to it, but I still haven't read Lord of the Rings. still haven't read Wheel of Time.
I
You
haven't read
know,
Wheel of Time either, and in all honesty, I'm
yeah,
kind of don't want to.
yeah.
Heard
Like
it hasn't
I
aged that well.
well, and here's always my hot take. Every time people are like, oh, give me a hot take. What's a hot take?
What's an unpopular opinion you
Put
have?
it on like
That's what it means.
75% of books over 700 pages didn't need to be 700 pages. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I talk about it, and I know people like almost every video where I read a big book, it's like I was like the rule of 700. Like once you get to 700 pages, you're playing with fire because I feel like you're starting to add a lot of fluff
Yeah,
in
that's
your
one of
book.
my things I've been trying to do in my novel, and I'm about towards the end of it, and it should be about, at least on Google Docs at the moment. And it's like, it's actually almost 70,000 words, because I know, like, writers
Oh,
care more about
yeah.
that than the page
Yeah,
count.
well,
But I'm
that's
weird about the page count, so I'm like, it's
yeah.
almost, on Google Docs, it's almost like 240 something
So you
pages.
got so you said you got 3 more chapters and an epilogue?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean your book will probably be about the size of my first book, which my first book was 89,000, you
Yeah,
know.
no, something like that. I
So,
don't know. I don't know,
yeah,
but
my
it's.
my my average
But I didn't. My point
and
was I didn't want it to be like a big chunker. Don't
yeah.
get me wrong. I
Yeah.
don't mind like chunker fantasies, but like,
Well, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with a big book if it needs to be a big book.
but
Um
I want.
but
But it's also I want my readers to come into my world and not have like these big things going on.
yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a world-ending thing. You
Yeah.
can just have
Yeah,
a good
exactly.
time with this story.
That's exactly how I'm setting up my universe. Like my first book, this, you know,
Yeah, that's a
it's
thin
not
boy.
yeah,
It
it's
looks fair size.
89,000, and then this one, the second book was
I really
79,000.
like the cover design, by the way. It's
Oh, yeah,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah, I actually just had my artist on. Yeah, his name is Matthew Allen Bond. You can find him on Drawn by Bond. Yeah,
Drawn
I
by
got
Bond.
lucky.
I like that.
Yeah, I got lucky to find him. I was actually talking with this lady who does she teaches art at a college, right? And I seen her stuff and I was like, "Oh, it's really cool, surreal type stuff." And I had this idea in my head that like, "Oh, I want this big landscape behind my two characters and they're going to be standing there in a cool pose." And and it just it kind of it fell apart because she had some issues and whatever. um so I was like, well, I'm like, okay, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna scrap that. I'm like, what do I like? Well, like, what do I think looks really cool? And I love ink art, like black and white pencil art, ink art. I just think that it pops, it
So
looks
you
really
like,
cool.
Gary Gianni? Have you ever seen like Gary Gianni's stuff?
Not by name, maybe by sight,
Well, hold
but
on, let me find. I'll do myself. Like this. Ever seen this before? And
oh yeah, that's nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
so stuff like that is what you're saying.
yeah. Like, and I thought to myself, it's like, well, what will pop out? I want it to look fantasy like, or whatever, and but I want it to pop out when people are scrolling through Amazon, or if they happen to, once I, eventually get these into some stores and stuff, I want them to be like, oh, that pops out, that looks really cool, and I find with ink art, you stay there for a second, and then you look more at it, and then you find more details. And I just happened to be like, hey, on Twitter. I was like, because I used to be really on Twitter, and I'm still on there. It's just I focus on YouTube now. It's not that I don't like Twitter or whatever, or some people hate on it. It's just I'm focusing
Now
more
it's
on YouTube.
X.
Yeah, X now.
I just went on there the other day and it was X now. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even know they were changing it. That's how much I pay attention. Um, but so I was just like, hey, does anybody do high quality pencil art? And Matthew was just like, "Hey, I do it. You want to check out my work? Go to my website." And I was looking at his stuff, and I was like, man, that's some really good stuff. And then we just kind of talked for a minute, and I didn't really micromanage him. I was just like, I want a sword with a hand, with a cut, and a little bit of blood,
Oh
just enough
man,
to kind
I,
of.
God, when or if I get to that stage, I'm gonna be just like, cause like here's the thing, like I can like talk about story. I'm like, oh, I could probably, cause my brain's always thinking about it, right?
Yeah,
Well, when someone's like, well, hey, how do you want this like thing to be, or hey, you want to contribute some like words to this thing I'm doing, I'm like, excuse me. So I'm like, what?
yeah, but yeah, I
My
just
mind just blanks. I'm like, oh god.
yeah, I liked his work, and I was like, you know what, man? I was like, I'll just give you a little bit to work with, and then you do your thing, man. And that he came up with the cover, and I was just like, and a lot of people were like, man, that's a they want to know more about him and stuff because they really like the cover. And I mean, the font is everything is custom. That was my big thing. Like, I knew that was going to be the most money I spent, was going to be on the cover, because that's your main marketing tool, especially as a self-pub author. It's
Mm,
like, and I didn't even attempt to go traditional. Like, I know how to write a query letter. I know what they are. I know
mm.
some agencies and stuff. Like, not personally, but I know where to send stuff. And I'm just like, that's not what I want to do. That's like, I have my own vision. I know
Yeah, I know.
some.
I'm the same way. I'm like, dude, my book is so niche. Like, do you think Orbit's gonna take it? Probably not. And I'm fine with
Like,
that. So I'm
you
probably
know,
gonna go self-publishing when I get
you
there.
know.
But I'm trying to
Well,
take it
and
one step at a time right now.
well, yeah, and you have full control. You make a lot more money per book. You can get to market so much quicker. And for me, that was a gift and a curse.
Ah,
Because it's like, I was like 30, well, 32, and I was like, you know what, man? I know some traditional guys, and sometimes it takes 3 to 4 years from the first time you hand them your draft to get your stuff published. And I was like, and I'm like, no, I'm not waiting that long. Like, I wish, like, people are like, well, what do you like, if you could talk to your 18, 16-year-old self, what would you say? And I would say, don't stop writing, just keep writing, like,
ah,
and maybe I would be fine with that if I was 18, 20 years old, Brandon Sanderson style. Like, if I was super young, yeah, I wouldn't. Okay, cool. What's 4 years when you're 18? To wait. But I want to get it out now. I have a vision. I have 6 or 7 books already, in my mind, what the stories are going to kind of be, what the characters are going to do, how it's going to interact with my other books.
yeah. Also,
You
I've just
know,
seen a lot of like self-published people and like a lot of the indie authors are kind of hang out on YouTube. So I'm like, oh, maybe I could get into that.
yeah, I mean, and that is the best thing about, like, BookTube is
I mean,
you
as cool as it
and
would be to
like,
be traditionally published, I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to go through the song and dance of sending stuff out, and they send back a nice letter, being all like, oh, it was
yeah,
okay, but we not what
get
we're looking for, and I'm like,
yeah, getting
really?
turned down. Like, well, and that's the thing too. It's like, you'll hear stuff like, "Oh, so and so was turned down 47 times
I
before
know.
they
I'm
got,"
like, I don't know if I
and,
want to do that.
and you're like, "I don't know if I can take that kind of rejection." It's like, but and also it's like, a lot of times people who are rejected that much, again, they're really young, and it's like, I'll just, I remember when I was 20, I was young and stubborn, and no one could tell me nothing. I'd probably just keep going too, but also, like,
Yeah, I see all
now,
these authors are like, oh, I was 32 when I first got my first, thing going. I'm like,
but
dude, I don't want to go through
yeah,
that.
but also it's also like some inspirational stuff. Like, one of my favorite
Well,
authors, and
yeah, no, of course. I'm
I
not.
was I was also super excited and like blessed. I don't know what you want to call it, lucky, that I got Richard Kadri on, and I was able to interview him. He's the author of the Sandman Slim books.
Oh yeah, I've heard of
Um,
those.
Yeah, like whenever if you tell people, "Oh, I like Dresden Files, I like urban fantasy," the two ones that they're like, there's more now. Like over the last few years, there's other ones that have
Sandman
become
Slim. I
popular.
like how that sounds.
But it like, but like the two big ones, if you said like 5, 10 years ago, if you're like, "I like Dresden Files," they're gonna be like, "Oh man, you're gonna love Iron Druid and you're gonna love Sandman Slim." You know, those were the two that they would comp. Although they're not. I mean, now with Iron Druid, yeah, he's completely, at least in the first book, is like pretty copying Dresden. Like, like I was like, all right, Kevin, I know, I see what you did here. Like, but I've heard he kind of does his own thing, because like people will say that the Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time, is basically Lord of the
Yeah,
Rings.
yeah, that's what I've heard.
Uh,
I've heard it
and
be
then he does
described
his
as
own
like
thing.
Robert E. Howard writing Lord of the Rings, or it's basically Lord of the Rings with like Eastern stuff in it. I'm like, man.
Yeah. But but like Sandman Slim, and I've read all those. I think there's 12 or 13 of them, and he just ended it last year. Um, but his actual best book is a standalone called The Grand Dark. I will plug that every time I tell people it's such a great. It's like a dystopian, steampunkish, kind of book. But like I got to interview him, and he is, what is he? I want to say he's 65-ish. Um, and he didn't get Sandman Slim published until like oh eight, like maybe
I was 7
2010,
years
something like
old
that.
then.
So yeah, he was in his late 40s, something like that.
Yeah, I've heard
Fit.
like Donald Ray Pollock didn't start writing until he was like in his 50s, and then he's got like 3 books out now.
Yeah,
Oh my
so it's like
god!
that. That's what I hold on hope. I'm like, all right. I'm not old, but I'm like,
Well, my thing was
it
I wanted to start while I was young, so I wouldn't have to be like, man, look at all this wasted time.
that's what I'm serious. Like
I
I
remember I
started
turned
like
20. I'm like, okay, you should do something.
yeah,
21,
like
okay, you should do
I
something. 22,
like
I'm finally doing something.
like my character from this book is the colonel that started the whole book. He was actually a villain from the story that I wrote when I was a sophomore and junior in high school. You know, so it was like 17 years in between, like where I just feel like, man, I wish I would have just kept writing, but he was a colonel of it, and then the character now is nothing like that character.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I wrote like a zombie novel when I was like 14. It was awful. I should just know. But there's there's another like zombie thing I want to do, and I'm actually borrowing concepts from that I was like, oh, I think this
yeah,
would be cool, and I'm doing
yeah,
that now. So it's like
yeah,
it's
there's definitely like
no
there's
ideas go to
characters that I'm
waste in my in my writing.
yeah, there are still, characters that I'm pulling from that original story. Not that they're specifically like they were, but like I like the concept of the character. So I was like, but like, yeah, looking back on it, like I actually found that original story. Like I found my old backpack and I opened it up and I'm like, this is like 20-year-old backpack or whatever. I'm like, my story's in here. But you see stuff like I had a character named the Dark Lord. It's like,
Yeah, I
it's
remember
like,
when I
oh,
first like read the Lord of the Rings. I wrote like I was like kind of doing this like very Tolkien rip off thing. And I had like this wizard, and I'm like, oh yes, and he turned into one of my antagonists. So I'm like, okay, it's working out. We're doing
yeah.
it.
Well, and especially in my first book, I kind of stayed away from like wizards and like drawing out a magic system because
Yeah.
honestly, I'm afraid of messing it up. Like magic people are
Me,
very picky about magic systems.
I'm just like, dude, I don't want to fucking go through it. Like, here's this magic, and you're gonna fucking like it. That's how I'm doing it. I'm like,
This magic is as soft as it gets. Don't ask me how it works.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, like
like
I try to have some logic, but I'm like, you know what? Don't ask me to try and explain it, because I ain't Brandon Sanderson. I
Yeah.
can't explain that shit very well.
Yeah. So yeah, in my
Oh,
second book, I do give a little detail of how like wizards use magic. There's gods and everything, so they all have their own form, but I gave a little bit. I tried to be a little, I don't know, a little unique to the magic system, but I didn't like, I'm not like, misboring all the metals and each of the metals do this and you burn the metal and all that good stuff.
plus I'm more into like softer magic systems anyway, so like that's fine. I can just do this. Now a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff I'm doing, I'm kind of pulling from like like a lot of it's like, well, if I explained it, that would spoil some things. But there's like salt. Like salt's a big thing in my. Now it's not like a.
Yeah,
No, it's
that's
not like
cool.
a. Now I don't want it to be like a Brandon Sanderson type of thing. But it's like salt's a magic. Like you can
Well,
use salt magically. I'll put it that way.
well, and my whole thing is like, some,
Also, it's from like the
like I was,
superstition. Like you put salt around yourself, like demons won't get you.
oh, it's like kind of like the supernatural,
Yeah,
like,
pretty much.
yeah,
Like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I love me some supernatural. Um, but like, yeah, one thing, and like I was telling you earlier, is like it's good that you've already got a channel and you're already, people know you and you can talk, you can talk about your stuff and you have a little bit of a platform right now. And
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be
so,
dramatic as fuck when I finish it. I'm gonna be like, I'm looking for some beta readers. I'm gonna like do like
yeah,
this
well,
super dramatic
um,
like reading.
the way I did it, the way I got at least beta readers is, I was heavy on Twitter, so I asked Twitter, but I also I belong to the like Jim Butcher, Facebook page.
Hmm.
And I was just like, I asked the moderators, I'm like, hey, I got this book. I'm very influenced by Jim Butcher. Can I ask? And that's where I got most of my beta readers from. I was just like, hey, anybody want to beta read for my book? This is kind of what it's about. And yeah, I got some of my best beta readers, from there. So I mean
I don't know if
that's
it's
a
a
good.
bad idea to ask like friends of yours, but I've had some friends of mine read some of it, and they're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
you
right."
can. Well, yes, like in my mind, get as many people as
And
you
I
can
and
to
I
read.
said,
What?
I'm like, okay, I know you like me, and that's cool, but you can fucking rip on it. Like I
Yeah,
will, like I'll probably be a little hurt, but it's okay. I'll still love you.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that is the biggest thing about writing and about becoming an author. It's like a lot of people get stopped at the writing phase. They're like, some people will have a whole first draft and then they won't go any further because they're afraid of rejection or they're afraid of being critiqued too hard. And
I was
and
that
I
same
was the
way,
same
and
way.
then yeah,
Like, I had my beta readers, I had some critiques that they gave me, and you got to learn how to take it. Some of the stuff I was like, "Oh, I don't agree with you about that, but then it's like I said, if three or more people say something, probably you. It's probably not them, unless, like, again, unless it has something to do later on. And then it was so funny. Like, I published my book, and freaking KDP is a gift and a curse because, like, it's amazing that you have this platform as a self-pub, writer,
hmm.
and 75% of all books are sold on Amazon, but they do some wonky stuff over there to you. Like, I lost a bunch of reviews, which really hurts you because
That's good.
that kind of like, you start getting reviews beget reviews, and people can look at that. um so like I should have like 2 or 3 times the amount of reviews, but like there was like a apocalypse where they just like blew up a bunch of stuff. But
Apocalypse. I like that.
yeah, like, but like mostly, and like I got more on. I think I have more on Goodreads than I have on Amazon actually, and Amazon owns them. So I was like, why can't you put those
Yeah, I
on
mean,
there?
I
But
have Goodreads as well, but Yeah, I've it's funny. The other day I was complaining it like I went because Goodreads has like a like on Twitter they'll respond to you, probably bot responses, but you know it's
Yeah.
okay. And I'm like, hey Goodreads, I just wanted to know why do you have foreign copies of this book I'm reading? Because I'm not trying to be weird or anything, but like when I look for books, I want it to be in the language that I can read it in. I don't want it to be in Russian or Spanish. I want it to be in English. And they're like, oh, okay. Just send us an email. And I'm like, God, bureaucracy.
Well,
So I sent him an email. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, this is what's going on. They finally fixed it. So I'm just like, oh, thank you. You could have done that earlier.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's so funny. Like, but most of my reviews, have been pretty positive for, for More Than a Vampire. And somebody left, I don't know if it was a 4-star or a 3-star, and my wife like checks on it from time. She's like, who did that? Yeah, and I'm like, it's still a decent review. Like, you're not gonna hurt my feelings no matter what you rate it. Like, it'll suck if like, I've had people critique like the editing and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's another thing you work on. You like try to find a good editor. You gotta put out money, so it's like, but I was like, I haven't had anyone tell me that the story was garbage, so at least I feel good about that. It's like they
Yeah,
all like
no,
where the story is going, and they like, they mostly like the main character and stuff, and anybody who's ever, so it's mostly positive. So I'm pretty, I feel pretty good about it, and you just, the more you write, the better you get, the sharper your skills, and, so hopefully this next book is, takes you over the edge, and
yeah, no, yeah, that's all. That's one of the things I've learned. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you're just gonna write the best thing you have right now.
yeah,
Now me,
yeah,
I'm just like, I don't want to just like finish this thing I'm working on right now and just like wait for like however much time to like edit the damn thing. So I'm gonna edit it, and at the same time, I'm just gonna write something else because the
yeah.
bug has
Well,
bitten me, my friend.
well, and that's a good thing. It's like that's why I tell people. It's like as long as you finish the one you started,
That's a
there's
huge
nothing wrong.
confidence boost.
Yeah,
That's gonna be a huge confidence boost when I
yeah,
finish the damn thing.
yeah. There's
I'm like,
nothing
yes,
wrong with
I
like,
did it.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with banking it and then starting another one. But like, you like, and this is another thing, like on Twitter, all like the writing community and stuff. It's like, oh, I'm writing 3 books right now. I'm like, you're writing 3, but you ain't writing one. It's like you gotta focus in, or you're just gonna be looking for that new shiny thing, and you're like, oh, I've got 3 chapters done on this one, and 4 on that one, and 1 on this one. It's like you could have
Well, I'm not gonna do
almost
that.
been,
I'm doing mine one at a time. Like the one
yeah,
I'm doing right
yeah,
now, that is what I'm
yeah.
doing.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with like not like polishing completely one up. Like, yeah, finish that one and you can start on the next one. It's like,
And also
you
edit
know,
the other one in the meantime.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
The next
I'm
one,
trying at this point. I'm trying. I'm a little bit more dialed in. Not perfect, but so like I said, I'm just going through. It's already edited. Like my 3rd book. Like if I wanted to. I could publish it tomorrow. Like if I really just I put it all into the KDP system, and I
oh
could
no,
I could have
I
it
want to
done.
edit the book I'm writing first before I do
Yeah.
anything like
Well,
that. As
yeah. I mean,
impatient as I am about this, like I wanna be
well, I mean,
sure.
like my book is edited, professionally edited. It's ready to go. It's just like, yeah, I'm going through it one more time, reading through it one more time, making sure there's nothing, trying to make this as I want, you know, every book especially if you're self-published, there's nothing going to be perfect. There's always going to be a little something missing here or there. But I'm trying to make this one as polished as possible. But like, yeah, so I got this one. I'm almost finished with the 4th one. So, there's nothing wrong with going on to the next one before you're completely done with the previous one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to get in the trap where I'm writing trap where I'm just like writing like three at the same time. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just slow
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah, so that is my like one of my main, people will ask me like, "Oh, can you give us some advice?" Stick with one book. Try your best to write something every day. Like I
That's what
can't. I'm not one.
that's pretty much what my thing is. I'm like, mine's more like, look, because I'm really structured, so I'm like, look, just set a time and just write.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be good. Doesn't mean don't try, but it doesn't have to be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Just do
Yeah.
it, and you'll
Yeah.
feel like there's
Well,
some days you're not gonna feel it. Keep doing it.
yeah. It was weird the way like I decided. I was like, you know what, Joe, like you're gonna write every single day until this book is done. And it took me 114 days to finish my first book. Like, so I averaged like 750 words a day. Because I work at the post office. I'm a mail carrier, so it's like the
Oh,
way I would the, the way I would do it is like I would like we do our little loops or whatever, and it takes 10 to 15 minutes. So I would just do the loop, think about in my head for 10 or 15 minutes what I want to write. So I'm almost like self-editing in my head as I'm delivering the mail or whatever. And then as soon as I got back into the truck, it's like try to write as much as I could, write as much as I can for like 60 seconds, 2 minutes maybe, move on to the next section. Same thing all over again. Go out, walk, think. So I'm almost like, my stuff is probably more polished than the average person. It's still, I'm still not like, I'm sure Stephen King almost doesn't have too much editing because he's been doing it for 50 years. He's probably great right off the bat. But like,
well, I mean, yeah, you've been doing it for a long time.
yeah. So, but like, I've heard people say like on Twitter, I'll hear like, oh yeah, I wrote 5,000 words today, or I like, I've heard crazy numbers. I've heard people like, oh, I wrote 10,000 words today. I'm like, you wrote 10,000 words today?
I don't know
like
if I
the
could do that, but just do it and keep
yeah.
at it. You'll
Well,
be fine.
well, and here's what I tell people: it's like if you're
And there's
just
some
looking at a
chapters you're
book,
like, not really much is going on. That's
yeah,
kind of my.
yeah,
There's some of the chapters where not much is going on, and I'm not like, oh man, I want to get to the bigger stuff, but just
yeah.
keep
Like
doing
if
it.
you look at a book and you're like, your goal is to write it. You're like, this isn't a big book, but you're looking at it and you're like, man, there's so many words in here. This is gonna take forever. This is like not right at close to 90,000 words. If you write 300 words a day, by the end of the year you'll have 90,000 words. You'll have over 90,000 words. Just 300 a day. That's what you got to average. So it's like anybody could do that. Like, and I tell people, I was like, start at 100. If you haven't really written much, start at 100 a day, and then you'll realize, especially when you get excited about stuff, you'll be like, 100's nothing. Like
Yeah,
if you,
exactly. I was
you
about to
know,
say, I write a lot, so I'm just like, it's not that much.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
when
It's
you
not
really,
that. It's not that much when you get used to it. Like that's why I tell people. Like I had this person, and they're actually getting close to publishing. I told them like start at 100, right? Start at 100. Do 100 every day for 3 days, right? I guarantee you by the end of your third day, you're going to be writing way more than 100, you know, and then set it to 3. And then, my second book, I was like, I'm gonna write every day till it's done. It took me 79 days. I averaged 1,000 a day. But that's working 10 hours a day and then coming
I
home,
mean, that's even more impressive. I mean, right now summer's been awesome because I haven't really been doing a lot, so I have a lot of time to write. It's been
yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, I
I
do a
though
lot of, and
I've
I
been
use,
doing other things too. I've been like podcasting and
yeah, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know
well, and I do a lot of like dictate. I'll
reading
use
and a
I
bunch
use
of other
I'll
stuff.
use dictation software too
So
sometimes.
it's not like I'm just sitting around doing nothing because
Yeah,
I hate that.
but
Even though I do
it's
that a
great.
lot.
Like I think my best day ever was 2000 something. That's the best day I've ever had. I feel good if I get over 1,000. Like that, I'm happy. I'm like, boom, that's a good day. If I hit 1,000, I've done more than that, but like I wouldn't. you shouldn't beat yourself up no matter what. As long as you're writing, you're good, you know. But like there would be days where I'm
Oh
like,
God.
I only wrote 700 today. You freaking idiot! Like, why? What are you doing?
For me, it's more like, do these sentences flow? Like, are these interesting sentences?
Yeah,
Like, is it flow nicely? And that's what I beat myself
yeah,
up about. I'm like, first draft, just
yeah.
keep doing it,
The
keep
big
doing
well, and the big thing that one of the best pieces of advice I got starting out was read your stuff out loud if you're not sure. Like, especially your dialogue.
I'm
I do that now. Even if I feel like it's good, like
so bad at.
I'm like, that's a badass line right there, Joe. Yeah, like, but then it's like read it out loud, make sure it sounds like somebody would talk that way, you know, and that's, you
Yeah,
know,
I've done that. I'm kind of bad at doing that, but there's sometimes I write too formally and then I'll like think about it. I'm like, okay, would someone say it just like that? And I just kind of, like, probably not.
well, and I remember hearing this like in high school before I was trying to do anything with writing. Like I remember my English teacher is like, well, when you're reading a book, you don't want to read at your level. You want to read just a smidge above your level. Like that's what people like. Apparently, subconsciously, you want to read something that's slightly better than the way you would just normally talk. And you don't, and like as I've become a writer and reading more books, I notice that. I'm like, and I don't know if you've seen any of my like, if you've watched any of my shorts, but I do funny like I make fun of fantasy talk, and like, because I was like I do it too, but it's like people talking about like, oh, I can sense something foreboding coming this way. And he's like, nobody in real life just like uses the word foreboding. It's like, but in fantasy, it sounds awesome. Like,
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of funny, weird kind of fantasy phrases.
undulating,
What?
undulating.
Oh my God.
It's
I know.
everywhere.
I know.
I've
I
never used it
know.
once.
Ever since I've heard Murphy go like, I hate that
Yep.
word. I've seen it in a lot of fantasy. I'm like, what is? Why are these? What?
That was my very first short I ever did.
Now
Is when
that
I
word doesn't
watched.
bother me, but it's just like now
I
when you
watched
when you're
her.
aware of it now, you see it everywhere.
Yeah, I watched her video about that. She goes, "There's this word that I can't stand because it's everywhere," and that's how I started my shorts. My very first short was I called it "Weird Words Number One," and it's like it was about It was about stuff undulating, and now I hear it everywhere. Like yeah, so it's like in every book. I'm like, huh, the boat undulates, the sea undulates, the floor was undulating.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah. No, but yeah. Because I'll listen to like podcasts while I'm writing because I don't know. I like the ambiance, I guess. But
Something in the background.
yeah, I was watching yours with Joe Berne, who very kindly sent me a Wistful of Cinema.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Which I don't know if he told you,
Yep.
but apparently the same guy who did the covers for Dresden did his book, so he was very happy.
Yeah, yeah. I, he got the, and I was like, because his name's Joe too, and I'm just like, man, I was like, yeah, we get it, Joe. You're balling out of control. Like, like he, he was just like, who did Dresden? Let's see if I can get him. I wasn't even thinking that. Like,
I
I
know.
was like, whoever he is,
It's like if I just
I
decided
can't
to ask
afford him.
like Richard Anderson, I'd be like, "Hey, Richard Anderson, would you do my book?" And he just said yes. I'd be like, "What? You don't even know me."
Uh,
You know?
Yeah, well, and my artist, I was when I was interviewing him, uh, we never had a flow like a big flowing conversation before. So when I was interviewing him, I was like, like your stuff. I was like, were you influenced by like Berserk? And he was like, absolutely. And he starts ranting about like the artist and how it
Oh,
started and when he started watching it. And I was like, yeah. And I see some of the other stuff that he does because he does graphic novels for other people and stuff. And I was like, a lot of your stuff kind of looks like Spawn too. And he's like, yep, pegged me dead right there. He goes, that was another influence. You know.
oh, oh, he's the muscle guy. Okay, I see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got the big sword and he works out all the time. Yeah.
Oh, I saw that. I didn't see the name because I saw that a couple times.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, I was like, yeah, you look like are into that. And he was telling me about the history of Berserk and all that stuff. And I know Berserk's a big darling right now on BookTube.
oh Lord, manga's blown up for some reason on BookTube, and here I am who reads American comics. I'm like, guys, we got some good stuff too. So that's one of the
Yeah,
that's one
yeah,
of the that's
yeah.
one of
We
the
got
reasons
some
I
stuff
started
over
my
here.
YouTube channel as well. I'm like, all right, American comics need more representation here on
Well,
BookTube.
and that one. And some people like get on Daniel Green recently. They're like, oh, I used to watch Daniel Green, but now all he does is like anime and manga and stuff. And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, there's still other books. And he does, he still does book reviews and from time to time. But it's like you think he's been doing this for 6+ years, and he reads like probably more than 100 books a year. He's probably done with all the major series, so he's probably like, I gotta find something else, and
I mean, what are you
you
gonna
know
do?
yeah
I get it. I get that. I mean, now I mean, it's weird because I started watching Daniel Green back when he was like hunky dory Daniel Green,
yeah
like when he was like in his
yeah before
basement,
he
you
got more
know.
serious.
Yeah,
Like,
and then like just watching him blow up has been weird, you know.
yeah, I think
I don't watch his channel as much anymore because I don't know. There's other channels I found. I'm like, I like this,
yeah, well, and
but
that's what I tell people. It's like when you pop into BookTube, yeah, you right off the bat, even years ago. I mean, I got to him when he was, I don't know, he was probably 150,000. But he was always one of
was
the
it
first.
hunky dory Daniel and he had that
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
little
Like his hair was all everywhere, and he was never like, yeah, he used to wear his Ohio, because he was in Ohio for a few months or something like that. You know, so he still wears his Ohio shirt every once in a while, but like, so it was him, it was Murphy, and it was Elliot. You know, and but then like you
I don't
niche
watch a
down,
lot
you
of
start
Murphy's stuff, or I don't watch a lot of not Murphy Elliott stuff because she
Elliot.
covers like a bunch of like YA stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, whatever,
she
I
yeah
don't want to
she
watch that.
yeah she splits her time. Yeah, and then I started like getting nailed down. I used to watch, um what is her name? Oh Lord. Books with Brittany or something like that.
Oh yeah, and that the oh dang
She's
it.
from like Detroit or Michigan
Yeah,
up
no, I
there.
think I know who you're talking
Um
about. I've seen a couple of her things.
I think she burnt, like, she got to like 25,000 subscribers and then just kind of really slowed because she stepped away from fantasy. She read like all of Malazan and all of the Wheel of Time in one
Oh
year. I'm like,
God.
yeah, yeah, that'll burn you out right there. Like and this is another reason why like I shunned big books for about a year is I read three Malazan books back to back and the final book in the Dark Tower series, which is like
Oh,
900 pages.
dude.
Like all four of those in like a month or 2 month span. I burnt out so hard. And I know people love Malazan,
Yeah,
but
it's weird because like I have a thing, and I like to bring this up to a lot of people on this show that I've talked with. But me, I'm like trilogies, standalones, and like the occasional longer series, like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter or whatever.
yeah,
Like Malazan, now I will say Malazan sounds like something that would appeal to me. I like darker stuff, and I like darker weird shit. And I've heard that's what it. I've heard there's a
it
guy who
it is
has
it is
flies, and
dark.
it's on him.
It
It's
is
like
weird.
Candyman. Like he's literally like a Candyman, but he has flies on him. And I'm like, that sounds really fucking cool. But I hear it's 10 books long, and they're freaking dense and long, I don't know if I want to
Oh
go through that.
no, man! They only average like 1,000 pages.
Oh my god.
And the and that's my thing about the Wheel of Time is like I know every book is over 1,000 pages, and then they tell you that there's a slog where
Oh god, yeah.
there's like 3 or 4 books like that are garbage, and I'm like, okay, so you're telling me I need to read 4 to 6,000 pages of crap to get back to good stuff? No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm the same
I
way.
can't do it. Like with Dresden, yeah, like a lot of people will
Now, I've
tell
heard
you
Dresden's
gotta get,
different. I've heard it's a
yeah,
bit more like, I don't want to call it lighthearted, but I've heard it's more like it's easier to read and you can have a
yeah,
good time with it,
yeah. Especially at the beginning. At the beginning, like my friend was like, get through book 3, and I'm one of those people like, well, I don't want to read all these books, but like the first book is smaller than my first book. The first book is like 270
Like, let
pages or
the first
75.
book be good before you say wait till the third
Yeah.
one. At least tell me
And,
the
and
first
it,
one's good. Like, come
well,
on.
well, and like, and that's the funny thing. After my first year, like, I read all these books, and I thought, man, I'm gonna come back to Dresden, and it's gonna be like I'm gonna be disappointed. I'm like, oh, Jim's not that good, After I've read all these other ones, but man, I was like, he was good right off the bat. Like, Stormfront is not a bad book. Most people will say the first 2 are the weakest 2, and I tend to
I've
agree.
heard it. Only real criticism I've heard of it is like it's kind of male gazy, but I know you're kind of like you're not really patient with that kind of criticism, so I won't go too deeply into
Yeah,
that.
like yeah. I'll tell it. Yeah, right up front. Yeah, it's Mel Gazy. But here's the thing: it's set in first person. Harry Dresden is 25 years old
Ah,
when the first book starts. He is single-ish, and it's all in his head. He's rarely does he do things, outwardly that anybody would say is like, oh, that's sexist. Like he talks a lot about like, oh, call me chauvinist if you want, but I open doors and I do this, and but then there's also like supernaturally hot vampires, and he in his head he's like, yeah, she's hot, or I need to make sure I'm not paying attention to those boobs because I gotta fight this person, but it's like he's 25 years old. If you tell me that you are a man in your head and you're not thinking that, you're lying. Like,
yeah.
and
Now
I've
again,
told people this. I have been in discussions with people who were like, they want to go down that rabbit hole, and it's like it's a guy that's older than me, and I'm like, you're lying if that's not the way you were thinking in your head when you were 25. We don't talk like that out loud, but like they would put most of us in jail if people knew what we were thinking. Like young men, like I mean, I'm 35, and I'm just like you don't get to see inside of people's heads, like and as long as he's not doing those things, it's like that's a human being.
yeah, no, I mean, that was stuff like that is kind of like, you know, I'm like, look, if it's good, it's fine. I'll read it. Now, I mean, I have my limits. I don't like reading
Yeah,
about
I mean,
rape and stuff, but
yeah. Well, that's the thing too. It's like, and that's one of the
that
things
is one
I
of my
don't really.
issues with Game of Thrones at points because it's like it gets really rapey at some points, and you're like, dude,
That's one of my favorite. Not rape.
not
One of
rape.
my
That's
not
good to
rape.
know.
One of my favorite Daniel Green videos is where he's talking about like walking in and talking to George R. R. Martin, and like George is like sitting in the chair and he's talking about like everybody. He's talking about like, oh, what kind of flippity floppity does this guy have? Does it flop to the left or flop to the right? I need to know before I can start writing. And like because like George is obsessed with sex in his books and
Yeah, I
stuff,
know. I'm like, what?
and he's like making fun of George for like always thinking about wieners and stuff. It's like
Yeah,
uh and it's like, yeah, there's certain things, and like I said, I don't censor my books, but I don't put gore and stuff like that in
You have your
just to
limits.
stop
I get
people.
that. I'm gonna be the same way with my stuff because first what I'm doing right now is a very small scale kind of. It takes place in a town, so I'm like, okay, it's not gonna be a bunch of big world building. Now the next one, there will be more of like world building and stuff like that, but it's also gonna deal with some pretty dark stuff, and I'm probably gonna have to research a little bit, before I start writing, because
Yeah.
I do want to capture it authentically and not, not that I'm
Well,
worried about offending people, but I would feel not
yeah.
good as an artist if I didn't portray that in a convincing
Yeah.
way.
Well, and that's one of my things. Like, I just did a video about sensitivity readers,
Yeah, I was
and
going to ask you
like,
about that because I
you know,
also have some opinions on that.
yeah, I just did a video on that, and it's like, if you have the spare cash, sure, like, yeah, whatever. If you have the cash to burn, go get yourself a reader, but you should never feel as though you have to. That's another reason to have beta readers from different areas and different types of people read your book. And here's the thing, don't be an asshole. like, like,
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and guess what? And guess what? If you are an asshole, let that asshole print it and let people find out what kind of person you are. It's like,
Yeah, like, yeah,
and if you don't like it, don't read it or put it in the review. Be like, this guy does these things and he is bad because he does those things or whatever it happens to be.
yeah.
It's like,
I was gonna ask you about that because I saw that video and I'm like, I bet there's gonna be some very intelligent and mature conversations in this comment section here.
oh,
And I looked at them.
you've seen that. You
Yeah, no,
see, you've
I
seen the
looked at the comments. I was
dissertation.
like, you know what? This is a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. So I thought there was gonna be people going like, "You fucking racist! I can't believe you! You
And
need
that's
fucking
exact.
sensitivity, you bigot!" I'm like, oh man, I was prepared, but most of it was like,
Oh,
I
yeah. I was.
respectfully disagree with you. Like I saw
Yeah.
Joe Berne talking on there. He's like, this
Yeah.
is why people get them, and you're like, yeah, that's cool, but this is what I think, and it was like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know
Well, and
what?
that's
This
the
is
thing.
gonna be, and I'm like, this is not as
Yeah.
bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Well, like I was saying, like at the beginning of the video here, it's like I my channel has evolved a little bit, and I'm like, you know what? Like I so like I don't want to. I for a while, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I was walking on eggshells because it's like,
Like
don't want to say the
I
wrong.
thought in the comments there was gonna be some shit flinging. I'm just
Oh
gonna
yeah.
put it straight
So
to you. I was like, oh
but
shit.
I want to be like, I got some other ideas, and and I'd like to have people on to discuss certain topics if
Hmm.
they're not afraid themselves, because I feel like we should be able to talk about anything as long as, again, like, if you're not an asshole, you should be able to discuss anything. Like, and
Yeah,
that's like kind of like you said, like, I got like some intelligent people in the comment section, and we can have our
and they
disagreements and our
respectfully
agreements.
disagree. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
this has gone
politely disagree
way
with
better than
you.
I thought it would, because I was expecting
Yeah,
some like,
yeah.
you're a
Well,
racist comment or something dumb like
yeah.
that. I'm like,
Well, and AP is always good to jump in on an opinion piece. Like, he's like, if you want the most intelligent like comment, you're at wait for AP, and he's gonna jump in and give
I
you.
saw
He's
his. I'm
gonna
like,
give you.
oh lord. I'm like, well.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I
I
think I
enjoyed it.
even commented. I'm like, there's one part where I'm like, there's that knee jerk reaction where I'm like, no, but then I think about it. I'm like, well, this is
Yeah,
a
but
complex
no,
issue. I'll
yeah,
leave it at
yeah.
that.
I'm not one of those people that's like, you should never do that. That's BS, and that's these people trying to tell you. It's like, yeah, if you want to do it, or if you can afford to do it. That was my big thing with AP. It's just like, I'm coming at it from my perspective as a self-pub person who has a limited budget, right? I have to decide where this money is going to go, you know, cover, editors. I want to do audiobooks. It's like, this stuff costs money, and I'm not, you know, I I'm okay. I'm not, whatever, but I'm not making all this kind of money where I can just like, I'll do every single kind of editor that you can possibly have. Like, I don't have that kind of money. But if you do, Yeah, good, do it. Get everybody's opinion that you can get. But if you're sitting here and you're like, that was my big thing, especially when I wrote the first book. It's like, all right, I have to be pound for pound, dollar for dollar, the best I can be. I have to find the best artist for the price that I can afford, the best editor for the price I can afford. You know, but like I said, if you got all the money in the world, you can hire AP and you can hire sensitivity readers and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah. I mean, look, I would love nothing more than to work with someone like AP who thinks
I
about
would
this,
love it.
who would think about like stuff like prose and like how it flows and that
Oh,
rhymes. Like
yeah.
that would be awesome, but I don't know if I have enough money to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would, I'd actually be afraid to have AP look at my
Oh
work
my
because
god, yeah.
I feel like he would tear it to shreds. No, not because he's mean or anything, but just because that's what he does, right? He's
Mhm.
super critical. He's the critical dragon, right?
Yeah.
But I know, I don't know what he charges, but I'm pretty sure I can't afford it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if he's working with Steven Erickson, I don't have Steven Erickson money. Okay,
Oh
like,
my god. I've seen him going around and doing stuff, and I know there
yeah,
was some.
he's really cool. Like
Yeah, no,
he
I
jumps
had heard
on.
for a while like he was kind of a dick, and then I've seen like videos. I'm like, he's fine. He seems like a
Well,
cool guy.
and I did another video which was au- author versus reviewer, or authors and reviewer spaces. And that was really like, he was one of the original people that people complained about because somebody on one of the Facebook pages, or I think it was a Facebook page, complained about a scene in his book. I don't know if it was a rape scene or some dirty scene or something, and
Oh
they
god.
complained about it. And he kind of jumped in and wrote a whole thing about it. And people, and the debate was, should he have argued with the person? You know, and my view of it is probably not. It's not that he was wrong, like, but it's just like, that's not a good look to fight with people who comment about your stuff.
Yeah.
That's, especially if you're a big author, you have thousands, tens of thousands of fans. Let them defend you. They'll take care of it. Trust me. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some authors who are like who've like been like dicks to people, and I'm all like,
oh
okay.
yeah. Well, and that was, there was an author, and I don't remember exactly her name, but she had like a book that came out and it had like 55-star reviews, and then she got a 4-star review from somebody, and she flipped out on and
I
she flipped
heard
out on
about that. I heard about. I'm like, that was when I'm like, my guy,
yeah, she
you
flipped
get
out because of a
50.
4-star
You
review.
get so many, but 4? That's positive. Did you
I
not know that?
Here's the thing.
Threw me off.
If
I'm like,
if
what?
all I got, if someone had, like,
You know
if my
how
next
much?
50 reviews were 4-star, I'd be ecstatic.
I know. I'm just.
Like,
I know. That's my thought exactly. I'm like, dude, if I had like 50 and then it was like one that was like 4-star, I would still be happy. That's like
yeah,
still really good.
yeah.
I'm like,
To me,
God.
well, and to me, whenever I'm looking at something, whether it's a product or a book, I rarely look at the 5 stars. If I'm looking to be interested in something, I look at the 3s and the 4s, because I'm like, a 1 is probably just a hater. That's probably just
Yeah.
somebody hating on something, and a 5 may just be, that's a super fan, right? So I was like, let me see what the
So like the
4 says, because
threes
a
and the
4 is going
five,
to be
or the
like,
four, threes and
yeah,
twos are probably like
yeah.
good. Okay.
A 4 is, I liked it, I'm gonna probably keep reading the next books, but here's what they could work on,
Yeah,
And then a
exactly.
3 is like, it was good, but it had some ups and downs, and that's how you'll figure out whether or not you like the you
Yeah,
yourself would like the
it's funny.
product.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen. I don't know if you ever watched like Reads with Rachel on YouTube, but she does like the
A
series
little bit,
where
yeah.
she talks about like authors doing dumb crap like this woman did with her book, where she got 5-star reviews
Yeah,
and she got mad at a 4-star one.
yeah. And
I
then
was just, I
I
was
think she got like
gobsmacked.
she went hard in on that person,
I
and
know,
then
and
she
she's all
got
like "f you" and
yeah,
you don't know
and
what
then
I'm
she's like,
saying.
"You ruined my perfect streak" or something, and then they like
They
review bombed
review
her,
bomb it. I'm like, oh god.
and then she got kicked, and then she got dropped from her publisher or something. I'm like, I
Oh,
feel bad for her. Like, I feel bad for her that it got to that level, but then it's also like
you did
you
this.
brought it on yourself.
You said that. Like,
You know.
it's
Well,
just,
and here's the thing. Like,
now I'm
I
not saying
have
what like. Now I'm not saying what Erickson did was like the same thing, but I had heard like he had some stuff go down and
yeah.
what,
His
and he's
well,
like
his
back
was
and
yeah, his was more like an AP style where he's like writes something very eloquent that tells you why he did this and like where he thinks you're misinterpreting. And I'm not saying that he was that. No, his was not that bad from what I gathered. But like I just wouldn't tempt it. I just
yeah,
like
no, I'm the same. I'm like, God, am I even gonna like if it comes to that? Because I don't want to say it will, but if or when it comes to that, I mean, I want to be like, I don't want to like get into a situation. Like, I'm gonna try and be aware of the fact that
yeah.
I don't want to get into a situation where I make an ass out of myself in front of
Yeah.
people,
Well,
and
and
people
and
might
here's another
review
thing.
bomb my book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and especially starting off, you can't afford that, right?
Yeah,
But
no.
it's just like, um, I've had people like both of my books. Like I've had people saying like, "Man, this is a great book," and then I've had people who I consider friends. Like I'll say like, "Do you know who Bookish Chaz is?"
I've seen him around. Yeah, I've seen him
Yeah,
on like I've seen like videos of
yeah,
him get posted. Yeah, I know
yeah.
who he is. Yes.
He's been on my Dresden, most of my Dresden live discussions. I've had him on for a chat, and he gave More Than a Vampire 3 stars. A three and a half stars maybe.
Yeah, it's
And
always
I'm like,
awkward when you like review stuff from people you know. Now,
yeah,
fortunately,
and it's
I
like,
mostly like stuff from people I know, but
yeah, and it's like, cool. That's fine. It's a 3 star review. He didn't like say it's a 2 or a 1. It's like right in the middle. He
yeah,
had stuff he liked.
he didn't just screech like you were some like bigot or
Yeah,
something.
like it's fine, and that's how you learn, and I've had other people say it's 5 stars, so I like, and that's the thing. It's like, and one of the things that really keeps me going is when you do get those like random people that you don't know, like just out in the ether who leave a review, and you're like, they give you a 4 or 5 star review, and they like really like it, and you're like, you as an author, that's like, oh man, okay, that's what we got to keep going. I had the other day, a guy, Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems. He read like 8 books in a month, and one of them was a Dan Simmons book,
Mm.
and and he rated my book his favorite book of the month.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I'm sitting here like, that made my whole week, man. I'm just like, because I would never say that I'm better than Dan Simmons. I wouldn't think that somebody would say my stuff was better than Dan Simmons in anything. But it's so cool, and
I still need
and
to
that's
read Dan
another thing. It's
Simmons.
like if somebody tells you that they like your book, nobody is a complete, you know, uh, custom snowflake. Like if somebody likes your book, that means thousands of people will like your book if you can get it to them. You
Mm.
know. So that's just my mindset is like, okay, I got to keep marketing, I got to keep figuring out ways to get these books into people's hands because there are people out there that really like them. So I know there's more people out there for it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, but like, yeah, I'm kind of cautious because I'm like, at the one hand, I would love to be able to talk with my readers and be like, oh, I'm glad you enjoyed this book, or hey, if you don't like it, whatever, or whatever, or even if someone doesn't like it, yeah. But like at the same time, I don't want to be one of those guys who just like makes an ass out of themselves on like
Yeah.
the internet
Well, and that's just like
because I've seen a couple
just like
people have done it, and
yeah,
it's
I'll have well, and same thing with YouTube. I'll have people in comment sections, especially if I do an opinion piece. Some people don't agree with me, but like, don't be an asshole when I comment back to them. I just like either I respectfully disagree or I'll say thank you for watching. I appreciate the support and you know, but it's just like you said, you don't make an ass out of yourself by sitting there and fighting
Yeah.
with people over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, too, because sometimes you get all caught up in the moment, and then you think back later, you're like, damn it, why did I do that? So I've done that numerous times.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, that's one big thing I'm trying to like do with my channel is like I want to get more people involved. I want to do more live stuff or more, interviews like this. I mean, I love talking to people about books, movies, whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm one of the things I'm trying to get like talk about movies on my channel again, but it's like it's been hard because like I have so many streaming services now, like it's made me lazy, you know. And plus, I have a podcast where I talk about it, or I have. Well, we're on kind of hiatus right now, but I'm like, I really want to repeat myself because I kind of don't want to do that. I'm like, you can watch this, and that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I'm so far behind on like a lot of movies that I want to watch, but it's like you get to them when you get to them, but
He didn't sign my copy. Joe Berne. He's gonna get canceled on Twitter. No, I'm kidding. I'm
Did
kidding.
he
Joe's a
did he send it to you through Amazon?
yeah, he did. It was yeah, no, it
Yeah.
just came in today, and he's like, it should come in like on the first or whatever. Because when he sent it to me, I was gonna go on vacation, so I'm like, when's it gonna come in? And he said like, oh, at the first. I'm like, oh, thank God,
Yeah.
I should be back home by that time because I
Yeah.
get really paranoid about people stealing my because I've heard like horror stories like people stealing your mail. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to waste all my money on this, and then someone steals it. Oh
Well,
man.
and and that's the thing of like being a self-pub author. It's like the easiest and cheapest way to send people physical books is through Amazon. But like also it's like, well, I would love to, and I do, like, I love to autograph and write a little thank you in there. But like, if you want to get it to them quick, it's like quick and cheap is Amazon, and then like, but you can't sign it.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
was just kidding when I said that, but it's all
yeah,
right.
but I, I've, I, 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 I try to do like giveaways and stuff. I used to do that when I first started. I did a lot of giveaways. I used to do giveaways on Twitter too. But like one of the persons when I first started my YouTube channel, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a giveaway of my book and I'll do a random pick. You comment in and like, and then I'll just randomly pick somebody. And I randomly picked somebody, and they lived in England. And
It's
I
like,
was
oh
like,
god.
that cost that cost me so much to ship over there before I like I said, I'm a boomer at heart when it comes to technology, so I wasn't thinking about just send it through Amazon. So I'm like, I'm shipping it over. And it's like it cost me like $27, $37 or something like that to
Oh,
send it over there. And I'm just
yeah.
like I was like, well, you know what? I'm a man of my word. Like I said I would send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you. I signed it and nice note and everything. And
I'm sure he prizes that. I've had some friends who sent me their books, and yeah, it's good times.
oh
I
man,
talked to Joe a few weeks ago, and that was great because he really likes comic books, and so do I. So we talked about that a lot, and we also talked about his book. So it's good. It's
do
good time.
you also do audiobooks?
Sometimes, not often. I have done them, but it's not like because I'm like I'm weird because I'm also kind
Sure.
of an old man at heart, so I like to read the physical book. But I don't mind audiobooks. But also, I just get distracted really easily when I do audiobooks. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, I'll send you both copies of my book, whether you want them on audio or if you want a physical
Oh
copy.
well, thank you. That
I'll
would.
yeah, I'll send those your way, man.
But
Um,
yeah, no, I had him on a few weeks ago. He's great. I really like Joe. He's a great dude.
yeah, he's awesome.
Um, yeah, he's great. We had a great chat about we had a great chat about like And it's funny because we talked about Invincible, because the TV
Yeah,
show's coming out,
he's super
and
big into comics. Yeah.
oh my god! And we were talking about that, and I'm like, dude, when's this gonna finally? When are they gonna announce this? A couple days later, they announce it. I'm like, oh, fine. I texted him. I'm like, oh, finally, they did it. It's great. It's great.
Oh man. Well, it's almost. I think it's
I
almost
know.
time
Yeah,
to.
I was about to say. I usually like the
Yeah,
longest I'll go is like 2 hours, but
yeah, this
this has
was.
been fun.
Well, like I know I'm having a good time when I'm like look down. I'm like, man, it's been 2 hours. I haven't even paying attention.
Yeah, I'm starting to get hungry too, so there's some things I need to do for.
Gonna get hangry.
Yeah, um, but yeah, no, this has been fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It was great, man. Yeah,
um,
we'll have to figure out a way to collab on something.
yeah, sometime. Um, if you want, I usually do this before we leave, but what are some like things? Are you on the social medias? Share it. Do all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. You can, of course, you can find me at JR Carrel on YouTube. That's my main focus now. But you can find me on Twitter. Just type in JR Carrel or Joseph Carroll and Joseph R. Carroll. You'll find me on there. I mean, I have a Facebook and I have an Instagram, but I really don't mess with those too much. Uh, so I'm on Discord, but if you really want to message me on Twitter. My messaging thing is open. I get weird DMs from random bots all the time too. So, but but I leave it open just because I get people message me want to know about books and other shenanigans. So that's a good way to get a hold of me. And like I said, if you comment on one of my videos, I will most certainly comment back.
Yeah. So yeah, you're on YouTube basically.
Yeah, that's my main focus right now is YouTube. I do tons of book reviews.
The
You
occasional
know,
tweets. I get that. They call
a
it
lot of
X now,
YouTube,
so
a lot of YouTube shorts. I do a lot of that stuff. I For the longest time I was doing um, kind of like 1 minute monster stuff. So I do a lot of like folklore creatures. I have
oh
a
yeah, I was
whole
gonna ask you
playlist.
about like Jenny Greenlake because I'm like that's a freaking dope name. I need to ask him
Yeah.
about that, and I haven't
Yeah,
gotten to get
Jenny
around to it.
Greenteeth. Yeah, yeah. There's I had to slow down because I went through all the major all the major folklore creatures. So now I'm really looking through these ones to find ones that I think will be interesting. But yeah, they're all like 60-second long. Um, you know, and almost all of these you'll find longer forms talking about them. But this is gets people interested and you know I think if that's one cool thing I do is get people more interested in folklore and mythology, I think that's worth it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Carroll, for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was super fun, man. I loved it.
All right. Yeah, we should do this again at some point. I'm not against doing reappearances. I just need to figure out when I'm gonna start doing those.
Hey, anytime if you need somebody to fill time, I love to run my mouth. So
All right. Well, take care, man. All right. That was fun. You can check me out on Twitter, Goodreads, and Letterboxd. That's about it. So I do have
I'm
an
definitely.
Instagram, but I barely use it. And on Facebook, I'm kind of paranoid about giving out like personal info like that. So I'm not gonna say that stuff, even though I don't mind sharing my name or anything like that. But
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want.
that can definitely be weird out there. Gotta
It's
watch
like a
out.
loaded hand grenade. I don't want to get that. I don't want to do that. But yeah, again, thanks for coming on, and thanks for watching, everyone. See you guys later.